So, welcome back. It's day 4 of the Weight Loss Your Way 365 talks here at Life Coach University. And today I'm going to be talking all about something I'm calling the spectrum of weight loss culture. Now, I know you might be wondering, like, what in the world am I talking about? But stay with me because it'll make sense in just a few minutes. But before we jump in, as a reminder, here at Life Coach University, the only cost of admission to these talks and others like it is that you promise to pay it forward with some act of kindness. And it can be absolutely anything you want. So give that some thought as you're listening to the presentation here today. Let's see. So, and a second reminder, and I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted there. Um, just as a reminder, go ahead and put any questions or comments that you have in the Q&A box so that I can answer them as we get towards the end of the presentation. And as promised, I won't forget them like I almost did yesterday. So just click on that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and then just drop your questions in. All right, so today's talk, as I mentioned, I'm calling it the spectrum of weight loss culture. And as a life coach for weight loss, I kind of make it my business to be aware of what's going on in the weight loss industry. And I don't need to tell you, it's a massive money-making machine. And one that I've given my fair share of hard-earned cash to, and I'm sure you have. But that's not exactly what I want to talk about today. It's actually the emotional aspect of weight loss culture that I'm most interested in sharing with you. And maybe you're feeling a little bit confused now by all the information that's out there. And frankly, a lot of it is just so contradicting. You know, you'd think in this day and age when we have access to almost any information we want that things would be easier. I actually think it makes it harder sometimes because you have to sort through more of it and figure out what's true and what isn't and what makes sense. So that's what I want to try to offer you today, a different perspective that might help you sort through all that noise. Because in the end, it really doesn't matter what anybody else says or thinks. The only opinion about your decision to pursue weight loss is yours. Yours is the only one that matters. Okay, so as I see it today, I kind of like to look at it, this whole weight loss culture, as being on this big spectrum. And we'll start with the one that I think we're probably most familiar with. On the far left of that spectrum is where I would put diet culture. And it's multidimensional and it comes at you from all different perspectives. The one thing that rings loudest to me, and frankly is the most insidious, is this underlying message that somehow you're less than or not good enough if you're not at what's been deemed an acceptable body size. So, first, let's be really clear on that. Acceptable is made up, it's somebody else's opinion. But this message can be like really in your face. Like, for instance, all of like the locker room photos posted on Instagram promising a body size and shape that maybe just isn't even realistic for most of us. And oftentimes that plays on our insecurities about our own bodies. So there's some very subtle messaging too that can be even more damaging long term. For instance, have you ever seen, I guess is the question, a woman of size representing a successful businesswoman? It's a rare thing. I know this kind of messaging hit my self confidence really hard early in my career. Excuse me. I now have a successful career in human resources, and I worked very hard to climb that corporate ladder, but it was a painful existence. And not because of the work, I love what I do, but because I never believed I measured up to the image I'd created in my own mind of what a successful career woman should look like. And I'll tell you exactly where it came from: the movie Working Girl with Melanie Griffith from like the 80s. And I'll tell you what, pencil skirts and stilettos were never in my wardrobe. Instead, I spent years trying to hide my body or at least minimize it by wearing what I thought was the ever slimming black and navy blue color palettes. I kept myself small by not speaking up in meetings because I believed no one would care what the fat girl had to say. And work events like dinner meetings, they made my skin crawl, especially after I had did my usual quick room scan and discovered that yes, indeed, I was the biggest woman in the room. I basically felt like I didn't fit in because my weight wasn't acceptable. Excuse me. When I was coming up in my career, and even now, women of size were not equally represented in business, not in ads, not in movies or stores, and those even those like awful corporate training videos. But because I rarely saw anyone like me very early on, I assumed I was the problem, that I wasn't good enough because I didn't fit an image that had been presented to me and I took on as truth. But I do want to give a shout out here to a popular retail store in the US. It's called Kohl's. And I was recently in there, and for the first time ever, I saw plus size mannequins in the women's, I'll call it professional section. And so, hats off to them that they're representing women of size in their stores with real clothes. So, thank you, Kohl's. So, anyway, my definition or perspective on diet culture is this: it's an unrealistic expectation that a particular size or weight is worthy or is required to be worthy or to be deserving or to be heard and accepted. Me and millions of other people have bought into that belief, fell for the slick marketing and the promises of quick fix weight loss, and none of it has worked. None of it has helped. And none of it makes our lives better. It's all lies. You are worthy and you're enough simply because you are a human being. And our self-worth can never be measured by a number on the scale or the size of your jeans. All right, so that is kind of my take on the far side of diet culture on our spectrum. So let's talk a little bit about that other voice that's getting louder out there, and that's the anti diet culture voice. So if you swing all the way over to the right side of the spectrum, that's where you're going to find this group. Now, admittedly, if I had to pick sides, I'd probably be in this camp or at least on the peripheral of it. However, like any good debate, each side has a less appealing part of their platform. The anti diet culture does do an amazing job at being the voice of inclusion, promoting health over vanity, and teaching us how to love ourselves just as we are. And for that, I give them a standing ovation, and I am right there in the trenches beating a similar drum, but in my own way. Where my support starts to diverge is when this group makes statements like it's impossible to change your body size, or points a finger and calls out anyone who they believe is committing the mortal sin of participating in diet culture, or said differently, trying to lose weight. This, in my opinion, is just as damaging as the diet culture implying you're not enough because of your weight. So, my personal experience and that of many, many other women is that you can change your body size. And I can tell you for darn sure, losing 100 pounds drastically changed mine. But the counter argument here is that long term weight loss is not sustainable. Well, I've kept my weight off for 4 years. I think that's pretty long term. And my weight loss coach lost over 100 pounds and kept it off for over 15 years, as of hundreds of thousands of other women. So that argument doesn't hold water with me. I believe the difference is me and others like me who have kept their weight off did the real work while they were losing weight. They solved the root cause, which always starts with how we think about ourselves and our lives. So, but I do acknowledge that there is a percentage of people that the percentage of people that actually do keep their weight off is pretty abysmal. It's not a lot, but that's not because their body was incapable of keeping it off, kind of like what the anti-diet culture implies. It's usually because the dieter made no change to their life, like I was saying, other than the food they ate, and most likely they didn't do any work on their thinking as they were losing weight, and that's key. And like I've said before, if all you change is the food that you eat, you may lose some weight. but you are left with the same life, the same problems, same everything, except you're just in a smaller body. So, what happens when we don't learn to normalize our food or feel our emotions instead of eating them? We typically gain the weight back. One of the reasons why diets don't work. Excuse me. Or we live in a constant fear of gaining our weight back, which is no way to live either. So, my point is to question the claims and the statistics and the facts or whatever information is being presented to you. Look for the other side of the story. My disappointment in the anti diet world happens when I see things like shaming and chastising others when they don't fully reject the seeking of weight loss. But what I think is creating even more shame and confusion for the woman who's already struggling with body issues is the fact that they are being shamed and chastised just because they want to lose weight. After years and decades of hiding because of their weight, like I did, now some of these women feel like they have to hide the fact that they're actually trying to change their body out of fear of being called out for dieting. I saw this, excuse me, I saw this recently, and it was so sad. There was a woman in a group that I belong to that had posted on her public Facebook page her before and after story. She'd lost a great deal of weight, probably 50 or 60 pounds. And she had her before and after picture up, and she was so proud of herself and so proud of all the work that she had done to change her life and all this. But I swear, no sooner did that post go public, in came all of the anti-diet people, literally just beating this woman up for like I said, creating the mortal sin of participating in diet culture. They were making her feel bad for an accomplishment that was so great to her. And if they took the time to kind of read her post, they would have seen that it wasn't all about the weight. It was about how she had changed her life, how she'd gained confidence, and how she'd was doing things in her life now that she'd never done before, and not because of the weight loss. So just be really mindful of that. It's just like I said, I support many of the platforms that this group stands on, but when it comes to this kind of thing, that's kind of where I draw my line. So anyways, you can kind of see how it almost feels a little impossible to win anywhere on this spectrum. But as much as I believe in dieting doesn't work, I can't fully support that anti diet movement because I believe you can completely reject diet culture and this need to change your body to be acceptable and still desire to lose weight. Your reason to pursue weight loss is yours and yours alone. It is not for anyone else to judge or chastise you for. I know when I was losing my weight, it started out because I thought I had to be acceptable. But until I started doing that work on myself and figured out that it wasn't the weight that was holding me back, it was what I was making the weight mean about me. And that's what I went to work on. And guess what happened? When I started working on that, I actually was able to lose weight. And you know what? As I started to like kind of unwind my own diet brain, I started to face my fears and my insecurities. And I found so much freedom. I found confidence and I found myself. That's the magical thing about it. And it was there the whole time. It was there the whole time. I had it in me. It was just hiding under a heavy blanket of self-doubt and shame. So, as a life coach for weight loss, I strive to create a safe space for women to explore their unique reasons for wanting to lose weight and how to create a process that supports their goals and builds self-confidence and self-love. It's the whole reason I became a coach was because of what I had experienced while in that process. And this part of it is just so important to me. Because weight loss alone isn't the magic pill that will make all your dreams come true. It just isn't. But don't get me wrong, losing my 100 pounds was amazing. But the personal growth I gained by learning how to show up for myself, that's what changed my life. And neither end of this diet or not to diet spectrum can ever take that away from me. So if you're getting caught up in this which side do I need to be on thing, remember there is no right way to think about this. And you don't need to pick a team. You're not obligated to buy in hook, line, and sinker to either side of the spectrum. Give yourself the space to explore and consider different perspectives. And as my personal coach reminds me all the time, take what you want and leave the rest behind. And I want you to do that this month with me. Not everything I'll say will resonate with you, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, I expect that to happen. But if something does resonate, grab it and run with it. You're an intelligent woman, and with the you have this God-given right to have your own opinion and stand firmly in it. So, said differently, you do you, whatever that looks like. Now, I know it's easy to get caught up in all the noise. So, I want to give you a little bit of advice. It was the best advice I ever got that helped me stay focused on me as I was losing my weight. And you ready? Two little words: delete and unfollow. Ruthlessly delete and unfollow people on social media or anywhere else that's, in your life that are spewing out things that trigger you or just not aligned with your values. A constant stream of things that make you feel bad about yourself has more negative energy behind it than you can imagine. So delete and unfollow. And don't worry about missing anything. If that particular person, they're just not aligned with your values, they probably never will be. So you're not going to miss a thing. So let me give you an example of something that I did that really took this heavy load off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there. When I was, well, basically all my adult life being overweight and desperately wanting to lose weight, I thought I got a lot of inspiration from before and after pics, from stories and magazine articles that showed a before and after. I used to buy Fitness magazine just to read the before and after stories. So I followed on social media a lot of these things. And at some point, when I got a little deeper into this work, I realized that those things weren't inspiring me at all. Because what I was doing, I was looking at them and comparing myself to them. And let me tell you, some of these before and after pictures, I'm willing to bet probably weren't even legit. And I was comparing myself to someone else's results, which is never going to happen because we're all different, we're all unique, and we're all going to have different results. My body was never going to look like the 20 something person in the locker room with the abs and the biceps. It was never going to happen. So I deleted them all. I stopped following that stuff. And like I said, this huge weight came off my shoulders. Now, another place you might want to consider deleting, look at the apps you have on your phone and ask yourself, are they really helpful? One of the apps that I deleted right out of the gate because I was trying to learn how to lose weight my way was MyFitnessPal. I know a lot of people use it. And again, just like the spectrum that we talked about, I think there's a lot of things that they offer that are quite good. But what I don't like about it is that it's somehow relying on this external source to tell you what to eat and reward you when you have a when you exercise, let's say, or it tells you when and how much, and it doesn't really give you an opportunity to explore what works for you. And when I deleted that app and stopped feeling that I was beholden to an app to tell me when and how much I should eat, and if I got a big yay and more food if I exercised, my gosh, I cannot tell you the how liberating that felt to get rid of that thing. So your decision, and like I said, you might not be aligned with everything I say, but look at your apps and see if they are actually helping you or are they causing more stress. And if that's the case, just delete. You can always bring them back later if you want. So fill your social feeds with accounts that inspire you, that things that bring you joy and that light you up. And it doesn't have to be all about weight loss. There's so many other things in the world that you can start to focus your brain on and expand your thinking beyond this heavy load of weight loss that you've been carrying around. Follow the people that are speaking to you, that really get you. And believe me, this will make all of the difference in your perspective. All right, so I hope you found that helpful, and I feel a little maybe less confused, at least about how to look at some of these things that we all see filling up our feeds. So let me hop over here and see if we've got some questions. All right, I don't have anything there, but I do want to cover a few questions that I hear a lot from people that I engage with and my clients. So first, this kind of goes into the conversation about anti-diet culture and all of this. So the question I get a lot is, I hear lots of people saying that obesity isn't a bad thing, that it just doesn't affect your health. And if that's true, why does it contradict everything I've ever heard and learned before? All right. So like I said, I hear this a lot. I question this. So this is going to be my very non-medical perspective. So I'm not a doctor, but here's what I believe about this. I think it's wrong that we say that obesity causes certain things like type 2 diabetes and all of this. What I do believe, though, is that weight can play a role in these types of diseases and illnesses and how they present. I think it can aggravate it for sure. I can only speak to my own personal experience as a type 2 diabetic. When I started to lose weight and feed my body healthier foods and really deal with my condition, my type 2 diabetes got better. I got off all my medicines. So I know for me personally, and that particular illness, my weight played a very big role in that. But you're very right. There is a lot of contradicting information. Some will tell you that you can be perfectly healthy and be overweight, and that's probably true for some people. But for other people, extra weight can aggravate an existing condition and in some cases be quite dangerous, like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. So it's always good to ask very specific questions to your doctor about this. And I know sometimes this is really hard because in our medical systems today, we're pushed through really quickly and we don't have sometimes the opportunity to ask these questions. But that's when you need to advocate for yourself, ask them anyway, or find someone that will listen to you. Okay, so let me hop over here. So I do have a question now. It says, my partner judges me when I eat foods that he thinks I should or shouldn't eat. It's hard to do this on my own. It feels very lonely at times. Yeah, absolutely. I can totally understand that. And this is one of those things that we have to work through as we're losing weight and get comfortable with knowing that it's your decision. It truly is. And you don't need someone else to be on board with you to do this. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but I hear this a lot. My family isn't on board. My partners aren't supporting me. You have to support yourself first and stand in your own greatness. Stand in your own decision to take control of your health. And it could be just very small baby steps that you start with. And maybe it's just acknowledging that, what, I know you think I should be eating something different, but I'm going to try this now. And if it doesn't work, maybe I'll try it your way. Just take control of your process and do it in a way that feels good for you. And I know it's difficult. And yes, weight loss can be a very, very lonely thing. So just stay with it and acknowledge that you are doing something for you. This is self care. You're taking care of yourself so that you can be there for your partner and for the other people in your lives. All right. Another question. I hate going to the doctor because I always have the weight discussion, but they never offer any help. Yep. So this I've experienced this too. Now here's a couple pieces of advice. Now again, this is not a medical piece of advice. It's just how I've experienced it and so many others. So one thing you'll hear from the anti-diet culture people is that you can demand that the doctor doesn't weigh you or talk to you about your weight. You can do that. Personally, I've never gone that route. I've decided that I'm okay with them weighing me, even when I was at my heaviest, because I think they kind of need to know our weight to properly prescribe, if in fact they are prescribing anything. So that's very kind of an academic answer there. But the one thing I will say is, and I think the medical community would agree, that they get very, very little nutritional education in medical school. That's just a fact. You can Google that. I think the last time I did, it was something like 19 hours of nutritional education. So there's so many other resources out there. There's life coaches and health coaches and people that can help you navigate. Maybe it's a particular medical condition or just weight loss, just like I do as a life coach for weight loss. So, but one thing I would caution you to do, because I've done this to myself, don't let your weight prevent you from seeking medical care. I would sometimes cancel doctor's appointments because in my mind I hadn't lost enough weight yet. And that was not serving me. It was not getting me the help that I needed for my own medical conditions. So go to your appointments, but seek out other help if in fact that's what you need and you're not getting it from your doctor. Okay, let's see. Another question. I've been trying to reduce drinking because when I drink, I notice I eat more foods that I wish I hadn't eaten. Yep, that's so true. I think that happens to so many of us. So, a lot of times, what I'll talk to clients about this who have the exact same question, and what they do is they will treat their drinking very similar to the way that they're normalizing food. They'll plan their drinks. Like if you know you're going out or you know you'll be having a drink that evening over dinner, they plan how many drinks they want to have and they hold themselves accountable to that. And it's tricky. And it does require you to be very intentional, very mindful, and really like your reason. I think that goes back to a lot of things I talked about today. If you like your reason for the choices that you're making, whether it's to drink less or eat differently, then you're more likely to follow through and be accountable to yourself. But don't do it if you don't like the reason. Don't pick a diet if it really doesn't align. So I would treat the drinking very much like I would my planning my daily my food daily. And I'm going to talk about planning as we get into some discussions next week. But be very intentional, do it with intention, and notice what comes up when that happens. Because there's we could have a huge conversation about how drinking and food and is so much aligned as we're talking about how to incorporate it into our lives, make it work for us, and still be able to do it. All right, another question. My partner changes his food diet every few months. It's really hard on the family. I have to shift our family budget, prep food, and sometimes give away kitchen utensils. This chopping and changing is very, very tiring. Yeah, totally get it. And this is kind of it for a long time. This happened in my family because I was the one doing all the diet changing. And I was fortunate, I'm very fortunate that my family was always supportive, but I can tell you for sure, every single time I announced the next diet was happening on Monday, I could just see it in their faces. They're like, oh, dear God, let this pass quickly. So I totally get it. Now, here's something that I can think about, and it's very much dependent upon your lifestyle. And how your family functions. But in my family, it was really important to me, and it's just something we've always done, that we sat down and had dinner together. Now, I'm cooking, and I didn't particularly care to cook 3 and 4 different meals to please everybody. But what I discovered when I was on my way to my own weight loss was that there is a way to experience the process of weight loss and still keep your family members satisfied. So this is kind of hard to explain. Um, when you when everybody's eating something different, it's very, very hard. there's an element of planning that can happen where, you just kind of sit down and say, okay, here's what we'd like to prep this week, and then you stick to it. But I'd also want to say that not everybody has to eat the same way. This was a hard lesson for me to learn. We can all eat something differently without going into a big cooking event every evening. So, for example, my family loved to have pizza night. I'm not a big pizza fan. I never was. So I planned ahead and had something else prepped for me that just required a reheat versus a whole new cooking thing. So there's little things that you can do to make that a little bit easier because even in our families, like I was saying before in some of the other talks, we're all individuals, very unique individuals. And maybe it just doesn't make sense that we're all eating the same things at a sit down dinner, at least every day. Maybe it's just not practical. And we will have to find ways to that each other can be satisfied without creating additional work and expense for each other. So food prep was very helpful to keep me accountable to my own plan. And I just found a way to do it that made sense with the family. So if they wanted chicken and pasta and I wasn't interested in the pasta and the white sauce, I just kept a little bit of the chicken aside and I cooked it separately. So I just made it work and still allowed them to have the things they enjoyed, and got to allow the things that I enjoyed the way I like them. So I hope that helped. It was a little bit of a roundabout, but we're actually going to have one of our talks this month on a food prep, on how to do a really easy, practical food prep that will make sense for you and your family. All right. I think we have gone through all of the questions. All right. So again, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you're finding this helpful, and I'm really giving you some different ways to kind of look at this whole process of weight loss. So again, as I have all this week, I would like to invite you, if something really resonated with you or you really want to dig deeper, hop on over to my website, normafrahncoaching.com, and you can click the button in the top right corner that says Done with Diets. And I would be happy to talk with you and help you sort through anything that you'd like to talk about from this conversation or the previous ones. So have a beautiful day, and don't forget, go out there and pay it forward. All right, we will see everybody tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.